What's happening is a very serious regression in the mentality in the UK. The thinking is Cold War thinking. Britain behaves in many ways like a vassal state of the United States. Now, the problem is economic relationship between the United States and the UK is not that important to the UK. Tying yourself to the declining part of the world. This is the worst period in British economic history since before the Industrial Revolution. It is no longer a great power. So where is Britain going? Britain is leaving the European Union, so suddenly there's a big hole as a result of that. Now, Britain has decided to end the relationship with Huawei. Britain is rejecting Europe and rejecting China at the same time, in a situation where the British economy, this is the worst period in British economic history since before the Industrial Revolution. It so happens that the economic relationship between the United States and the UK is not that important to the UK. It will add very, very small amount to British GDP. It needs to have a much broader view of its relationship with the world. And in strategic terms, in my view, the decisive country in this context is China, because China is really moving dramatically on the technological front. In a way, what's happened is Britain is choosing, a sort of cul-de-sac away from the dynamics, the key dynamics of the global economy. Consequences are going to be extremely serious for Britain. What's happening is a very serious regression in the mentality in the UK towards China. It reminds me, I lived through it, it reminds me very much of the Cold War. In fact, the thinking is Cold War thinking. China is just the enemy. It has to be rejected. And with that crisis in 2008, American opinion, I think, elite opinion, began to shift and see China now as a threat. America's hegemonic role in the world would be undermined. And Britain is aping the United States. And the reason Britain is aping the United States is that basically that has been the British way since 1945. And by the end of the Second World War, Britain was in great debt to the United States and so on. So what it did was it decided finally to recognize that it could not compete with the United States anymore, and it would have to accept a sort of partnership with the United States. Ever since then, it's very, very rare for the British ever to disagree with the Americans. There is no other country that is so supine to the United States. Britain behaves in many ways like a vassal state of the United States. Now, the problem is tying yourself to the declining part of the world. You're cutting yourself off from very important new innovations, developments, technological progress, and so on, which is exactly what's happening now. This is a huge historical mistake. So they're still playing the game, as it were, by the old rules, when the basic parameters of the world have changed very profoundly. I mean, Britain's never really been able to adapt to the fact that it is no longer a great power. From the early 19th century, what happened was that China could not understand what was happening in Europe. The emperor, he rejected the idea that Britain had anything to offer in terms of manufacturers in a famous letter he wrote to King George. China has no need of your manufacturers. So, and this was the Industrial Revolution. Same sort of problem. And they're very difficult. Those kind of changes are very difficult to make.